All right, everyone, we're here to talk about the Yeah We Know podcast.
Well, first off, I want to say belts are just changing hands left and right here.
Yeah, we know.
If you came through the WWE and wanted to be a big-time deal, you had to go through The Undertaker for, what, about 20 years, Jimmy?
Yeah, we know.
Jimmy, are they screaming RK Bro, or are they screaming Randy, Randy, Randy?
Yeah, we know.
It's Seth freaking Rollins. Show the man his respect.
The Yeah We Know podcast. Find it in this feed, part of the Morgan You Knows podcasting network.
Hello, Internet. The Morgan You Know Podcast Network presents Balls and Brew.
Welcome to the flagship sports podcast here on the Morgan You Know Podcasting Network. I'm your host. My name is Rod Morgan. This podcast is executively produced by James Jamriska. He will be along in a second. My co-host, who's with me on most episodes and will certainly be joining me on this journey through this particular NFL season. He's down in North Carolina, but I don't think he really particularly cares much about the Panthers. It's Chris King. Chris, hello.
What is up, fellas? And yeah, I'm not too big on the Panthers. I do want to see Baker Mayfield succeed despite Cleveland. That's about it.
There we go. I like me some Baker Mayfield as well. We had a lot of discussions in our text message thread about Baker Mayfield this offseason. Mr. Jamriska, you are joining us, but Mr. Williams is not joining us, but we are starting that journey where we get the knowledge from the football handicapper in his true environment right in the midst of the NFL season. Are you getting as excited as I am, Jimmy?
I am. This is kind of setting the plate for Williams, who will come on next week. So we've got a lot of content for you, and Williams will come by and tell us what we did right, what we did wrong next week.
Exactly. I think he's going to be chomping at the bit to get after us about all of that. We're going to get into an NFL tiers discussion here after a couple of minutes. Mr. Williams was involved in the formation of this list, but there's, of course, going to be disagreements because, again, this is Balls and Brew. This is what we do on Balls and Brew. We argue about sports the way you do with your people when you're having a couple of brews. But what you do with your people this time of year usually is fantasy football. So I want to talk a little bit of fantasy football here off the top. We are not fantasy football experts. I have not crunched any numbers. I'm sure Mr. Williams has some sleepers for you that he may throw out next week. But I want to talk fantasy football on a more philosophical level here. Let's start with the draft. Jimmy Jam, should you have already drafted your fantasy league, or is the proper time to draft still awaiting us?
No, if you already drafted, you're in a rookie league, and you need to really rethink your life. No, you shouldn't have drafted. You've got to wait till the preseason is over. We've had a lot of injuries recently, and we just got to make sure. You can't draft 3 weeks ago and half your team is hurt. So you need to wait. You got about another week, I'd say, week and a half before the draft. That weekend, generally before the season starts, is good. That's also Labor Day weekend. But, there's 3 days. You can find 1 day to do it.
Chris, I know you're just kind of a big fan of natural selection, just like, that's tough. Sorry about your luck. So, do you disagree with this philosophy, or are you with Jimmy that, you should wait for it to be over? Do you think that it's okay to already have draft, and then if you got guys hurt, then you're just ready for the waiver wire before anybody else is?
I prefer to wait. I always prefer to wait, especially preseason, training camp. Wait till these injuries suss out. You don't know if someone's going to get on the IR, be out for the season. We've already seen that with a couple guys. Wait. If you do it too early, you're handicapping yourself.
I'm certainly with you guys. I'd rather wait for as long as you can. I'm also a proponent of just go ahead and draft your fantasy league the night of the Thursday night game. Now, listen, if you're one of these guys that wants to go out and celebrate and be in the bar for the game, then fine, I guess you're out. But I think many of us at the advanced age that so many of us are on this podcast, we're fine at being at home. And for me, the game can be on in the background and I'll be doing my fantasy draft because guess what? I have just as much fun doing my fantasy draft as I do anything else. You only have to worry about the one game. Just be careful about knowing if you draft somebody from one of the two teams playing in the first couple of picks, he's going to be a starter. But other than that, I have no problem with drafting on that opening night. Some people would push back against that, but that's my favorite draft night to have.
Yeah, that's fine. That's kind of been a little bit of a tradition with our league, I believe. So, yeah, it's fun because you get to watch, you get to talk about the games on our podcast network that we usually bring up. So that's kind of fun. So I like that, yes.
Now let me ask you this then. So that's fun. I'm going to go to the deep philosophical question here, and then Chris and I are going to get engaged in a hot debate that we've had about fantasy football for years here, because debates between Chris and I is entertaining on the Balls and Brew podcast. But why, Chris, do we play fantasy football? What is it? What joy do we draw from this game? Because it sounds more often than not to me that I'm complaining about this damn thing, that I'm never talking about what I love about it.
For me, it goes back to playing Madden and building your own team, drafting the players you want, building up the offense that you want, using the defense that you want. In fantasy, you get a taste of that with real people every week, the entire season. It gives you an opportunity to pay attention to games that you may normally not have watched because they're not your teams, but you got a guy that you need 12 points for on Sunday night. You're watching that game.
Jimmy, is it about the fantasy aspect of putting a team together because you want to be a GM, or is it more about competition on some level for you?
I think it's about competition with your friends. That's what it is, or your coworkers, or whoever is in your league, your family. It's just one more thing to talk about and, give each other shit about. It's fun and just brings people either closer together or drives them very, very far apart.
What I like about it is it becomes a bedrock, right? It's one of those things that you sort of put on the calendar, and the way that it's just been completely accepted and assimilated into modern society, that becomes your friends can't give you an excuse anymore, right? Hopefully that's a time where either online, or if you guys have a league that's dedicated enough, you get together in a BW3s, somebody's house, whatever. That's the one time a year where you're going to be around a couple of your buddies. You're going to be able to cut loose, have some fun, and sorry, can't do this thing that night. It's the fantasy draft, and it's one of those things that I think we know that we have carte blanche to be able to do. So why not take full advantage of it? That's what it is for me, Jimmy. Is just like I have to force myself to interact with my buddies, because more often than not, I'm going to take the easy route and just give them the stiff arm and move on and do exactly what I want to do.
Exactly. It's different than just texting in a group text or anything like that. It's really getting involved with people, just seeing people you haven't seen in a while. I really enjoy it, and it's a good time just to have fun.
All right, Chris, let's get into it here. Actually, Jimmy, let me ask you this question first. Your favorite type of fantasy football to play, right? Like I'll just leave it that broad, right? Is it auction draft? Is it actually you like to go by rounds? Is there a certain way you like to craft the team that you have to draft? What's your favorite way to play?
So my favorite way is I like 2 quarterback leagues, because I think it's the most in-depth you can get, because 1 quarterback league, there's going to be, this year especially, there's going to be like 16 or 17 quarterbacks that you can have on your team. But when you want the biscuit on your team and you're actually going to draft him because you need a second quarterback, I really like that. And as far as auction or snake draft, I'm not one of those people that's a snob either way. I kind of like the auction just because you can get anybody you want. It's just how much you're going to pay for it, and that's the big strategy. So I think auction is a little bit more fun for me.
Let me tell you, okay, you're right about auction, but I'm going to go a little further than you. You're a complete wuss if you do a snake draft at this point. This is absolutely ridiculous. What are we in junior high? What do we got, seatbelts on? Are we eating applesauce with our buddies after the game's over? Please do an auction, step up to the big leagues, give everybody a fair shot at every player. All right, that's what it's all about. And here's the other thing that I love about an auction draft, Jim, because you're right. How much do you want to pay for a guy? But here's what always ends up happening. You're bidding a guy up, and you're up to 66, and you're like, this is fine. Then somebody bids it to 67, and you got to go 68, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, that's too much for me. That's $2. It happens every time.
Can't do it. Too much.
It happens every time. So, Chris, how about you? What's your favorite type of fantasy football to play? And I'm going to give you the floor here for a second because you're about to be annihilated.
So I do enjoy the auction draft. I like being able to go out and target the players I want, try to bid up the players that other people want so they have to spend more money. I think
you are that guy. You are that guy too.
I do that.
Everybody hates that guy, but you know how often that can backfire on you. You know how often that backfires. Jimmy, you've been part of one of those backfiring on Chris.
I don't like Chris. Yeah, you got to watch yourself because if you're the person that everyone knows is doing that. So if I say, hey, I really want Saquon Barkley and I'm bidding him up and you think I want him, there's going to be a point when I know that you're going to bid me up one more time and that's going to kill you because you don't want him.
Yeah, no, listen, it has backfired before, and that's part of the risk. There's a risk reward. That is an exciting part of the fantasy process that you don't get in a snake draft. Now, as far as like roster building and everything, being fantasy football, I tend to lean towards a stricter version. I want my fantasy team to at least resemble what could be on the field at any given time, whether that's 4 or 5 receivers, 3 tight ends, 2 running backs, but you can only play one person at quarterback position. There's only one quarterback on the field at that time. Only one quarterback should be on your fantasy league starting lineup.
I think I'm just going to start here. Chris, at what point did you think to yourself when you were playing a game called fantasy football that a bedrock and key to the enjoyment of said activity, again, called fantasy football, would be like, what would be best for me is if I play the actual realistic lineup out on the field? Do you want to draft offensive and defensive linemen, Chris? What are we talking about here?
I'm just saying that I didn't ever like the 2 running backs, 2 receiver, 1 flex type build. I wanted a little bit more flexibility. But I don't want 2 quarterbacks
by adding
starting.
3 tight ends and 4 wide receivers. That's not really more flexibility there, Chris. I love you, but
Well, no, but you have opportunity if that's what you want to do. Like no one's ever going to play 3 tight ends. No one's going to have 3 tight ends on their fantasy team that are worthy of starting. But you should have that option. But you can't have 2 players under center in any type of NFL game that I've ever seen. So why in the world would we do that in fantasy?
Okay, that's fine. I mean, nobody's going to be able to refute that argument, but it's also ridiculous. If we all basically just made...
but I'm going to.
If we all just made these points that we're basically just doing this thing because we want to hang out with our buddies, because we want to, draft players, because we want to put together a roster, why not then add an extra layer of strategizing to said roster that you have to put together? And Chris, let me give it to you just on a value basis here. We are literally taking the 4th and 5th wide receiver on certain football teams because of the way rosters work out. But then there are starting quarterbacks who are going to be sitting on the waiver wire. That's kind of ridiculous. Let me just call you out flat out here. You had a league for a while, a 10-team, 1 quarterback league. Essentially what happened in this league, and you can't refute this even though you wanted to play a 1 quarterback league, is quarterback value absolutely tanked in your league because, as Jimmy stated earlier, we started having enough guys in the league that were above average, very good fantasy quarterbacks. That quarterback had no value. You didn't even have to draft the best quarterback in the first round because everybody could only have one. Your backup was going to be pretty good, and they absolutely did not matter. Chris, your rebuttal.
I'm gonna fight back with you on that. I know the league you're talking about. That was the infamous Petty Street League, and I had adjusted the scoring so that quarterbacks actually got penalized for poor play, which not enough leagues do. If you paid attention, if your quarterback wasn't completing at least 66% of his passes, he was going to lose points on those completions. Same way he got penalized for sacks, because sacks you give to the offensive line, but if the quarterback's not moving or getting out of the way or paying attention, he has to take a little bit of a blame. I put more emphasis on turnovers. It was harder for quarterbacks to score points in that league. That made good quarterbacks worth more. Just not enough people paid attention to the scoring, which was evident because after I changed that scoring, people wouldn't stop complaining about their quarterbacks not scoring enough.
So you're basically just taking the most important position in the game and just nullifying it? I don't see where that... We had 1 quarterback. I was making sure that the value was on the best quarterbacks. So if you wanted good value and you wanted... You were making sure Fran
points,
Tarkenton was awesome because you drafted him number 1.
That's dating me a little bit. He is a Hall of Famer, though.
Dating you correctly.
But that way you had to draft smart and get a top-tier quarterback. That did make them worth something. Not enough people pay attention to scoring. That's why you always pay attention to the scoring in your league.
All right, pay attention. Pay attention. We got it. Pay attention to the scoring. You were so much smarter than everybody else. Again, I'm not going to refute your point that you made quarterback scoring harder and you made it more of your top quarterback meant a little bit more to you, but you're not taking in the holistic value, if you will, the ripple effects of your decision to just penalize quarterbacks and think that you were Mr. Cool because you made guys suffer for getting sacked and you made them lose more points for interceptions. Wow, big deal. You still tanked the quarterback value because guys were way more willing to just roll the dice when they had one of the quarterbacks that you're trying to say was such a huge penalty for them to have in the league, or when they had one of those quarterbacks that didn't score points, they were fine to just cut him and pick up another guy and roll the dice. You still tanked quarterback's value, Chris, is what I'm saying. You're not wrong with the rule you explained to everybody and your smart-ass way that you explained it to make yourself seem so brilliant, but you still tanked quarterback value.
I wonder how Rod did in this league, Chris. How did he do in the league?
It's my big heel turn. That's what's going on. But I'm not wrong. You keep wanting to say I'm wrong, but you don't refute the points I'm making. And what you've done in your 2-quarterback league is you've made it so much easier for teams to score points. That's taking less strategy out of it. You get
welcome to the real life NFL, Chris. Welcome to what they're trying to do in the game that you're trying to keep fantasy football so much like. They're doing things more and more every year to score more points. Welcome to basketball where they're trying to score points. Welcome to baseball where it's dying because they refuse to make them score more runs. Welcome to American sports. Good to have you here.
I'm just saying you're watering it down. You're making it too easy.
I disagree. I'm giving you more choices. You have to decide in the 5th round, do I want to make sure that my second quarterback is actually good, or am I getting another running back or a wide receiver? I've actually made it more strategy involved in the draft, which we all claim is one of the most fun parts. I have just made you have to think 6 different ways about your roster that yours, where you're so intent on penalizing quarterbacks, does not make you do.
I don't think any different in your draft, though, Rod, because I know I can get any Joe Schmo quarterback off the waiver wire that week, and he's going to get me more points than any other receiver or running back I can put in that position because the scoring is so weighted towards quarterbacks. It's easy for a quarterback to get 17 to 20 fantasy points, and it's a whole lot harder for a running back or receiver to get those points. So it doesn't change the fact.
All right, I completely see it another way, and you see it another way, and that's why I guess we host this podcast together. Jimmy, we'll give you the last word on fantasy here.
Just play fantasy football. That's the fun part about it. These discussions here are just the exact same ones we have over text during these podcasts, during the draft. It's coming up soon, and can't wait. Fantasy football. Let's go.
There we go, Jimmy. You're so magnanimous. Yes. No. Listen, Chris and I can argue about this all night long, but we had something else that we wanted to get to as far as the real football that Chris was talking about in fantasy football there that he likes to model his fantasy teams after. We have taken all 32 NFL teams and we have put them into tiers. Now, we have not done this like a top 32 list. We're not going to go from who we think is the 32nd worst team to the top. But we are going to say that these teams are grouped together in a tier-based system. And we will, of course, start at the bottom. I have come up with snazzy names for the tiers. That is the majority of my input here. But Mr. King, I believe you started the list. Jimmy then had editorial power over at it, looked at it, and then Mr. Williams looked at it and made a few changes. That was how we came about the list, correct?
Yeah, there were some changes I definitely don't agree with, but yes, that's how it went.
All right. Do you care to give any insight into what methodology you used when you first put the list together?
I really kind of broke it down similar to what your little titles are here. I went essentially who the teams that I thought were playoff bound, ones that would probably get into the playoffs but maybe not get to the Super Bowl. The third tier was teams trying to get into the playoffs. Then fourth tier were also Rans, and then the fifth tier were let's play for 4 years down the road.
All right, there we go. I like your methodology there. I kind of went a different route here. I kind of looked at the bottom tier as a team that is just in complete dire straits, worst time, so many things not going well for you, terrible time to be. That's tier 5. Tier 4, nah, you're not quite at the bottom, but there's a whole lot of other things in your life that are going not great at this point, so you're there. Tier 3, kind of somewhere in the middle. Tier 2 is the second best time in your life, and Tier 1 will be the best time in your life. So that's how I have done those. Let's start in Tier 5, which I have labeled as you're 15 years old, the worst time in your life. You've got acne. All you want to do is get girls, and you can't get girls. You can't drive. You can't legally smoke cigarettes. You can't go buy alcohol. You can't vote. You can't do anything at 18 years old except think that you have the answers to all problems, and you have the answers to no problems. This is the worst tier to be in the NFL. Jimmy, your thoughts on 15 years old as the worst tier?
I like it a lot because the teams that we'll go over here in a few minutes are kind of some of them are perpetually 15 years old. Believe me, I know I'm a fan of one of them. It's just, there's really no hope. And once you get a glimmer of hope, it's taken away right away. So yeah, I think it's a good call on the 15 years old.
Chris, it's a long time ago that you were 15 when you were playing stickball and the milkman was delivering up front. Do you remember what it was like when you were 15 years old?
That's when we used to push hoops down the hill with a stick.
All right, so Tier 5 are 5 teams, incidentally, that basically should not even bother to start the season. Jimmy, you alluded to one of them. Let's just get them out of the way right here. Your Chicago Bears, unfortunately, fall into Tier 5. The fighting Atlanta Falcons fall into Tier 5. The Seattle Seahawks fall into Tier 5, which is interesting for them, but I suppose that's what happens when you trade away a franchise quarterback. The New York Jets fall into Tier 5, and the Jets, Chris, you were kind of referring to them, or Jimmy, they're perpetually 15 years old as well, kind of. Yep. And then Tier 5 also features a new team, but they're the same as the old boss. It's the Washington Commanders, and they're just as bad as the Washington football team and just as bad as the formerly terrible name, but I'm going to call it out here anyway, Washington Redskins used to be. Tier 5. Jimmy, your thoughts?
Yeah, the Jets, they would have been up in Tier 4 for sure, but then Zach Wilson, that glimmer of hope, he's hurt. He's not out. He's only out a couple weeks, but he's hurt, so I think that's a really fair place for that. The Commanders do not have a quarterback. I know who's there. They don't have him. They've got
I'll back you up there, Jimmy. They definitely don't have a quarterback.
They've got a really bad name. I do not like Commanders whatsoever. I think football team was a lot better. The Bears, they've got Justin Fields, but an offensive line that's very scary and not in a good way, and Darnell Mooney. Other than that, who they got? The Falcons, Marcus Mariota. I'm a little nervous about that one. And then the Seahawks, Geno Smith taking the helm for the Seahawks. I just think that this group of teams, the fans know it's going to be a long year, and it's going to be a very long year for these 5.
Chris, if I ask you to pull a team up out of Tier 5, who would it be? Any of them, or do you think all of them deserve to be here?
The only team that I may pull up out of Tier 5 would be the Commanders. And the only reason I'm saying that is when they're in the NFC East. They could wind up winning 7 games in the NFC East. It's a weird little division that weird stuff happens every year. They could end up being better than the Giants and even beating the Eagles or the Cowboys as well. So I could see them getting to 7 wins. I would think they deserve to be up a tier, and I would move a couple other teams down.
Ooh, all right. When we get up to Tier 4, you can tell us who you'd move down into Tier 5. I have a couple of wishes for the Tier 5 teams. All right. I have a wish that and Jimmy, I mean no personal harm here, but I really do wish the Bears are like 1-15, 2-14, just something absolutely terrible. Only because, let me finish, Chicago radio will be absolute gold. all year long, with Chicago sports talk radio hosts freaking out, guys from Wilmette calling in freaking out. I mean, there's going to be a bunch of viral clips on Twitter and Instagram of Bear fans going nuts all year long. Since the Bears don't bleed through my heart the way the Colts do, I'm not going to be as worried about that. And I wish that things go so bad for the Washington Commanders, certainly because Carson Wentz is there and he deserves all terrible things in his life. But also, I hope they go so bad that the Redskins, formerly the Redskins, the Commanders now, have to get Russell Crowe dressed up in his outfit from Master and Commander Far Side of the World and have him show up during halftime of a game to get people there. That's my hope for the two teams in Tier 5. Jimmy, your thoughts?
I agree with you on the Russell Crowe. I think that would be fantastic. And yeah, the Bears, it wouldn't surprise me if the Bears did go 0-17 this year. That would be a great feat. I just think that the Jets are the team that if Zach Wilson is only out a couple weeks, I think I could see them having a little glimmer of hope to get in the Tier 4, but not much higher than that.
They got enough young guys. They still got that coach that's energetic, things of that nature. Maybe the Jets. That's who you could convince me be pulled up out of Tier 5. But that's enough talk out of Tier 5. Let's move on to Tier 4, which I has labeled as you're 75 years old, all right? You're retired and you're not working, so that's one benefit that you have. One negative there, though, is money's getting a little bit tighter at this point. You've been around for about a decade and not being retired, so money's getting a little bit tighter at that point. Your kids really don't want to spend too much time with you. A lot of your friends have died off. There's just a lot of things going bad when you're 75. But there are a couple of glimmers of hope. A, you're not working. Like I said, B, you're pretty well respected by some people, right? They look to your wisdom, some folks in life anyway. So a couple of good things going on for you when you're 75. That's what I've labeled Tier 4 as. We have 7 teams in Tier 4. We have your fighting Pittsburgh Steelers, your Detroit Lions, your New York Giants, your Tennessee Titans, your Jacksonville Jaguars, your Houston Texans. 3 teams from the same division. My goodness, Colts. You don't win that division. That's going to be terrible. We'll get to the Colts soon enough. And rounding out Tier 4 is the Carolina Panthers. Chris, your thoughts on Tier 4 teams?
So, I know Williams changed a couple of these teams. I'm pretty sure I know which ones he changed. And it threw me off because Williams is a Vegas guy. He likes to listen to Vegas because they know what they're talking about. There are 2 teams in this tier that are by far the favorites out of Vegas to score the fewest points in all the NFL. That's the Jags and the Texans. They should be in Tier 5. You don't... Vegas knows that these aren't good teams. They know that they're dumpster fires. That's why they should be in Tier 5.
Jimmy, is this the Lovey effect for the Texans? Is that what's going on here?
It might be. Listen, the Texans front office is a train wreck, but Davis Mills is a good quarterback. They got a good running back as well. So I think they're going to have a little bit better season than people think they are. But I want to talk about the Jags real quick. The Jags on your scale, Rod, should probably be up, and we're not going to ruin it, but should probably be up a couple of notches because Urban's gone. The Jags feel like they're the number 1 team in the league. Can you imagine going from total anarchy to actually a professional coach in the building? Everyone, including Trevor Lawrence, must feel like this is a brand new day. They're going to have a really good start to the season. I think the Jags are the sleeper team here. I think they could go up a little bit.
Listen, they got Ronnie Sunshine Bass, a.k.a. Trevor Lawrence, as their quarterback down there in Jacksonville. He was the chosen one, the golden boy. Saw him do a lot of great things at Clemson. I would tend to agree with you, Jimmy, that having Urban Meyer out of an NFL building is probably a good thing. He seems like a toxic dude. Seems like he's not very open to suggestion. Not great things in the NFL locker room, considering the greatest NFL coach of all time, and it pains me to have to say that, but the facts are the facts. He's a guy who literally has no game plan and changes what his team does from week to week because that's what the NFL calls for. So I think all of those things are going to be great. Here's the problem I have, Jimmy. They have Doug Peterson as their head coach. And I just don't know if I love Doug's late game coaching abilities. And with a team like Jacksonville, they're not going to be able to run away from anybody. So they're probably going to be in a lot of tight games. And I think young team, Peterson at the helm, they're probably going to wind up on the losing end more than the winning end. That's why I agree with them here. But I think you're right that the team the Colts have to worry the most about in that division is Jacksonville.
They always have to worry about Jacksonville no matter what it is. And Rod, remember, you're talking about end of the game decisions. Doug Peterson at least knows the players on the other team. That's a win right there. Right there's a win.
All right, Chris, any other thoughts on Tier 4? Then the team that should have been up any higher?
I think you guys...
the Pittsburgh Steelers I want to kind of talk about here in a second if you don't bring something up.
I will say, I think the Steelers are right where they deserve to be. No one knows what kind of direction they're going, especially on offense. But really, I think you guys are sleeping on the Titans. This is the team that won the AFC South Division last year. They are bringing back the same defense. They are getting their all-pro running back healthy this year, and they didn't have him for almost the entire last half of last season, and they still won the division. They didn't do anything but get stronger. Their backup quarterback is going to be fighting for that starting position over Tannehill, and we all know Tannehill can manage the game good. You guys are really sleeping on the Titans. They're going to be pushing the Colts more than anybody else from that division.
Let the Titans start a rookie quarterback, please. Let the Titans start a rookie quarterback and then tell me they're going to beat the Colts in that division. That's definitely not going to happen, A. And B, I'm not so sure that the Titans got stronger because I think Tannehill showed signs of regression last year, only got older, and his receiving weapons got a little bit worse. Jimmy, am I wrong on the Titans?
You're correct on the Titans. They were kind of I wasn't a fluke team last year, but you got to watch. Henry is another year older, getting hurt a little bit more.
That's a very good point.
They can't run him like they used to, and you're right. They lost on some receivers. So I think the Titans are probably where they need to be right now.
All right, here's the other team I want to bring up. The Detroit Lions, baby. This could be the Hard Knocks effect here, but I love me some Dan Campbell. I love me a lot of what the Lions have. And listen, Jared Goff is not the long-term answer for the Detroit Lions, but when enough other things go right, Jared Goff got all the way to the Super Bowl. I'm not predicting the Lions to the Super Bowl here, but I'm saying he can be enough of a non-hindrance, which is about the biggest compliment I'll give Jared Goff. Not even saying he's a complete game manager, just enough of a non-hindrance that I think the Lions could surprise a few people here and end up nipping at the number 2 team in the NFC North heels a little more than people expect.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the Lions are going to come out strong. The NFC North isn't as strong as it has been in the past. I was able to watch them play the Colts. Obviously, it was a lot of second and third teamers, but they had some fight. It was a great game, and they had they have a lot of fight there. They got a great coach, and that's what you have to have. And I say great game. Yeah, he's the personality that team needs, and they look up to, and they fight for him. That's all you need there.
The one thing that's great about the Lions, and you saw this last year a lot, even though they had one of the worst records in the NFL, flirted with going an 0 again, that team still played with more heart and determination. They never gave up during a game. That always impressed me. They will still do the same this year. I think they'll win more of those games, and I think they have a shot at possibly surpassing the Vikings in that division.
Wow, I love that. I have 3 NFL future bets. Little teaser for next week. I'm going to give those away when Mr. Williams is here. But the Detroit Lions may or may not be involved in those future bets that I have down. Let's move on to tier number 3, right smack dab in the middle. So you've basically got just as many problems as things going for you, if not maybe a few more problems. I nab that as you're 35 years old, all right? You've had your job for a little while, making pretty decent money. You got your house, things are going okay for you there, but you got kids. They're on your ass all the time. You got to run them to soccer. You got PTA meetings. Oh, your back's starting to hurt a little bit, right? When you go out on a Friday night and stay out a little bit too late, you're like, my goodness, I feel a lot worse now than I did when I was 24, 25, 26, 27, things of that nature. So you're just right smack dab in the middle of life. Maybe things are going to go well for you for a couple of weeks. Then a couple of weeks after that, things aren't going to go as well. Things are going to be breaking against you. So you're 35 years old, right smack dab in the middle. Tier number 3 is the Dallas Cowboys, the Cleveland Browns, which is certainly going to bring some serious discussion, the Arizona Cardinals, the Las Vegas Raiders, the New England Patriots, and the Miami Dolphins. Jimmy, your thoughts on 35 years old being the age where you have just as many problems as things going for you?
Yeah, all these kids, this Deshaun Watson kid from the Browns, a little troublemaker. How are the Browns in Tier 3? I don't understand. Jacoby Brissett ain't going to win you anything. The Browns have a ton of problems.
How dare you? Jacoby Brissett won a few games as a Colt, Jimmy. He'll win you a few games.
Good guy, good family, right? But he's not going to win. He's not going to win. He's playing 11 games. That's not going to happen. I don't see how the Browns are here.
He could win 5. Jacoby could win 5. If he's 5-6 in those games, and then Watson comes back, I can't believe I'm even saying this, but I'm trying to make the case. If they're 5-6 through those 11, and Watson comes back and plays strong and wins them, let's see, there's 6 more games there. If he goes 4-2, they got a serious shot at making the playoffs.
That's betting an awful lot on Jacoby Brissett. So yeah, I don't see that, Chris. Are you a Browns fan or am I crazy? Don't answer that. Sorry, go ahead.
I was a Browns fan until they decided to dump on Baker Mayfield and signed Deshaun Watson. I'm not rooting for them this year. I hope they get everything they deserve. I don't think they'll be a tier 3 35-year-old by the end of the season. They'll be a 75-year-old easily. We all know Jacoby Brissett is not a guy that's going to be the leader of your team. We need to stop this
Jacoby Brissett slander. He did nothing to the Morgan Podcasting Network except give me some highs in a season when I needed a pick-me-up after a certain unnamed Colts quarterback completely turned his back on the franchise.
He is not going to win you 5 games. And even if he wins 5 games and Watson somehow wins you 4, that's 9 wins. That's going to be tough to get into the playoffs in the AFC. It just is. There's a lot of good AFC teams.
That's a good point. I forgot that 9-8 in the AFC that's pretty stacked is going to be tough. You're right about that.
Yeah, and listen, we haven't seen Deshaun Watson play a game in 2 years, right? And it's going to be...
Very good point. And listen, I don't really want to be sounding like I'm defending Deshaun Watson here. Everything that you said about the Browns, I absolutely echo. Let's move on from the Browns. Jimmy, any other thoughts in that tier?
Yeah, I think the Patriots are smack dab right in the here. They're 35 years old.
Goodness gracious, Jimmy. I just move on from a conversation I don't want to have. Now you're bringing up the Patriots. What's wrong with you?
You're the one that put the tiers together. They've got that one troublemaker kid again, and it's called the offensive coordinator. They really don't have one right now. And this could be a big smokescreen by that best coach ever. But I think the Patriots are right where they need to be. They could go either way. It could be they could have a really good season or a really bad season. And, as someone who's older than 35 but younger than 65, I think that they're right where they need to be.
All right, Chris, we're not going to talk anymore about the Patriots. I want to ask you a question about the Raiders. What am I to make of the Raiders? Certainly they have some offensive talent, but I, being a Colt fan, not a huge fan of Josh McDaniels for numerous reasons. He was a Patriots coordinator for many years and completely turned his back on the Colts. What are we to make of the Raiders?
Listen, they're going to get beat up in that division. All right, that AFC West is no joke. It's going to be really tough. That being said, the Raiders did nothing but surprise me last year. When all that turmoil was happening with Gruden or the players, I kept thinking like this, they're going to fall off, and they just refused to. The team's got heart. I don't know how much success McDaniels has had as a head coach, so that is a big big if on this team is what he can do and how he can handle everything.
Yeah, that's definitely the thing with the Raiders. I think they've got an awful lot of offensive talent, but you hit the nail on the head with them out in the AFC West. I mean, a couple of teams in their same division I think are going to be all the way up in the top tier, and we haven't also even named the Broncos yet, so that clearly means that they're ahead of them. So it's definitely going to be tough skating for them out there. Chris, I mean, I guess we can't really move on without addressing that your Dallas Cowboys are in this tier. Your thoughts on them?
Yeah, we're going to talk about, we're going to be bringing them up once we get up to tier 2. So let's go up to tier 2. There's a couple things I have wrong there as well.
Wow, Jimmy, look at him just trying to move things along here.
Apparently it's the Chris's show here. All right, I see what's going on.
No, you know what? He's fine. That's good. We'll move up to tier 2. Here's what I have tier 2 labeled as. You are 65 years old. You have so many things going for you in that you don't have to work anymore. You finally have that put away. You can wake up when you want to. You can do a crossword puzzle if you want to. You can go play golf, walk amongst nature, finger paint, sculpt, whatever you're into. You can do all of it. You got your finances together. You're still young enough that you can have a little bit of fun. You can still have a couple of drinks every once in a while. You can go on some vacations. You can hang out with the grandkids. You got plenty of cool events you can go to that they're having, or events that you can just completely pass on. 65, things are looking pretty good, except for the fact that, oh, you know what, man? My knee really hurts. My elbow really hurts. Oh, man, they're not going to give me the Social Security discount. That's terrible. You know what I mean? There's a few things not going right for you when you're 65, so I can't quite put you in the top tier, but that's what I have it for at 65. Chris, a few years ago, you were 65. You have some thoughts on me having 65 as the second best tier to be in. What do you think?
Listen, it was a good year. It's a good time to be alive. You have a little less stress in your life usually. You're retired, like you said at that point. Like you got things going the way you want them to. It's a good time.
There we go. So in the tier, second from the top, 65-year-old NFL teams by our standards, we have the New Orleans Saints, the Minnesota Vikings, the Philadelphia Eagles, your fighting Indianapolis Colts, the Baltimore Ravens, the Josh Williams-loving San Francisco 49ers, Cincinnati Bengals, defending Super Bowl runner-ups, and the Denver Broncos, now the fighting Russell Wilsons. Chris, okay, you say your Cowboys should be here. Who are you booting out?
I gotta say, I don't see the Cowboys being worse than the Eagles, the Vikings, or the Saints.
Okay, hold on one second. Jimmy, he gave 3 teams that he thinks the Cowboys are better than. What do you think of that?
I think the Eagles are going to be a lot better than the Cowboys. Cowboys, they lost an offensive lineman. They still have the same head coach last time I checked that they've had for a couple years now, and McCartney isn't very good. I don't see that. The Vikings, I could go either way. I'll give him that. And the Saints, actually, I'm down on the Saints. I don't think Jameis is going to do much there. So I would put the Cowboys. Tier 3 seems so good for the Cowboys, though, because it's kind of where they're going to be. They're not an upper echelon team. I just think you should move those 2 teams down, Chris, and the Cowboys should still be in Tier 3. So I kind of agree with you, kind of don't there, bud.
But you could see the Eagles being a little bit better than the Cowboys, though, which is sort of my argument for why the Cowboys could be there. I'm a big fighting, crab-loving Jameis Winston guy. You know what I mean? I'm all about the old Jameis there. I know he's going to throw some interceptions from time to time, but I'm still... Yeah, but I'm still down with Jameis. But you could convince me that Sean Payton not being there has a thing to do. But Chris, tell us why you think your Cowboys are so much better than all 3 of those teams.
They score points. You brought it up earlier. That's the main theme in today's NFL. You want teams that score a lot of points. Teams that score a lot of points tend to win more games. Cowboys led the league in offense last year, scoring more points than anybody else, 530 to be exact.
Did they win the most games?
No, that's
well, then
not
you
what
already
I'm saying.
have examples
They won
of why
their
that
division.
Doesn't matter.
They won their division. The Eagles haven't done much to improve themselves. They're essentially the same team last year. They're just hoping that the guys have grown to what everyone seems to think they will. That's a big, big if to put them in Tier 2. Tier 2
they got a
is
wide
essentially...
receiver. They got Jalen Hurts, another weapon. They brought in a wide receiver.
Jalen Hurts, another weapon. Okay. We don't even know how he uses any of his weapons really yet.
Who's better? Let me ask you this, because both of these teams are in Tier 2, and you're calling both of these teams out. Who's better, Kirk Cousins or what? I just lost it. Who are we talking about? Oh, Jalen Hurts. Who's better, Cousins or Hurts?
I mean, if I had a team, I would play Hurts. I would play Jalen Hurts by far because that's the future that you're betting on, right?
Okay,
That's
so
who
then you
play.
just put down
That doesn't
Kirk Cousins. You just put down
that
Kirk
doesn't-
Cousins, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Honestly, I'm going to go to Jimmy here in a second, and I know you know how to look up stats. Look up Kirk Cousins, and your boy, who you're arguing needs to be brought up into tier 2, Dak Prescott. Look up their stats. Look them up,
Actually,
Chris. You're going to
but
be
like
absolutely floored. You're going to be floored. You just took
You're
Jalen
mistaken,
Hurts
though.
over a guy who
I'm
has the
not-
same stats as your guy.
I'm not trying to move the Cowboys up. I'm trying to move those 3 teams down. I'm not sure that the Cowboys deserve to be in tier 2. When I did this originally, I had the Cowboys in your 35-year-old tier, not the 65-year-old tier. I think these teams aren't good enough to be
Okay, all right.
in tier
I'm sorry.
2.
I'm taking you down the wrong path. Let me ask you this then. How many teams ultimately make the playoffs?
14, right?
Okay. How many teams do we have in tier 1 and tier 2 right now?
Yeah, tier 1 is your teams that should be fighting for that Super Bowl berth. Tier 2 are the teams that should make it to the playoffs.
Right, so
Tier
you just
3
want
are
to
the
take
teams
3
that are-
teams out of our second tier, so then that's only half the playoff field at that point.
I'm saying there's probably only 7 to 8 teams that are going to be guaranteed a playoff spot this year, right? All the rest
what
are
I'm saying
fighting.
is we're trying to rank all 32 into tiers, right? So we have to make an allowance at some point, right? Like tier 2 has to be a little beefy because certain teams are going to make the playoffs whether we think they're that great or not. Jimmy, am I wrong on this?
No, you have to have more teams in tier 2 because you have the tier 1. And Chris, you were right. There are some almost guaranteed playoff spots here, right? Unless something major happens. And that's kind of what tier 1 we're looking at there. Then tier 2, there's that bunch of teams in there. And I don't know if the Cowboys are there in tier 2. They could be, but at this point, you haven't shown me much.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So between tier 2 and 3 is that razor's edge of we have tier 2 ranked. We think they're a little bit better than tier 3, but really either one of these teams could go either way and not be in the playoffs is what you're saying, Chris. I'm sorry. I didn't follow you there for a second. Look at me. I just apologized to you.
45-17 in on episode.
All right, I get that then. So let's focus on the teams that we think are there, and then we can go to tier 1 and wrap this thing up. Give me your thoughts on either Colts, Ravens, Niners, Bengals, or Broncos, Chris.
Listen, that race in the AFC North between the Ravens and the Bengals is going to be one of the most exciting storylines this year. Burrow's looking good. He's healthy. Lamar Jackson's playing to prove everybody wrong for some reason. He has to again. That is going to be a great, great competition. And I think whoever ends up winning that division has a realistic shot to get to the Super Bowl.
He's calling the AFC North as an exciting division. Chris, I like it. Jimmy, I would have thought maybe people might lean towards the AFC West, which includes those Broncos who we have here in Tier 2 with a new quarterback. I feel like maybe we should touch on them.
Yeah, I think Tier 2 has those quarterbacks that we really need to look at. You know, the second teams for some veteran quarterbacks, Russell Wilson being one of them. Is Russell Wilson going to be the quarterback we saw last year? He was hurt a lot last year. He had hand issues. Being in Denver, he's got a good team around him, so this really is all on him. I think they'll be okay, but I think we've got them right where they need to be, and because that's going to be such a hard division to win games. They're going to beat up on each other, so they might have a little less wins but be a better team. That's the issue with the Broncos.
All right, Chris, I know we talked about your Cowboys, but I know you're also a Colts supporter with me, and Jimmy, you certainly support the Colts too when it's not against your Bears. Frank Reich the other day came out and said that Jonathan Taylor is going to get a little bit less work this year. I don't know if I'm for that, considering the Colts are on to yet another carousel in the bring in a different starting quarterback, since a quarterback who will not be named on this podcast decided to leave the team high and dry and run off into the mountains somewhere backpacking and reading novels. So we got Matt Ryan, who could be a little old in the tooth, could have 1 to 2 years left. Chris, which way do you lean? Matt Ryan's going to end up being old in the tooth because you were talking up the Titans are so good in this division, or do you think Ryan's got some time left in him?
I think he has a little bit of time left in him, but I really think what Frank Reich is alluding to is that we have a better quarterback this year than we did last year. And you don't have to rely on Jonathan Taylor to do as much this year as last year. And if you're wanting a guy in your backfield to have some longevity, you have to lighten the workload a little bit, especially in the NFL. You can't keep giving guys 250-plus carries every single year and expect them to have a long career.
You absolutely can, because you do not want to be the team paying a running back on his second contract. I'm sorry to sound so flat out terrible about it, but if I'm the Colts, run Jonathan Taylor into the ground and don't be the team that has to sign him to a second contract. That's what I say.
Rod, you'd be a good GM because that's kind of what you need to do in this day and age. And I've said it for a while now, and it's just – it's what you do. You run them in the ground and then let them go. Look what go back to the Bears. Jordan Howard, one of the best running backs in the last 20 years for the Bears. Great rookie season. Out of the league 4 years later because they ran him into the ground and he moved around. It's going to happen again.
Dominic Rhodes ran for 1,000 yards in the Colts backfield a couple of years ago, man. Like, I'm sorry, any running backs out there listening, I don't mean any personal offense, but the NFL has shown you what your worth is these last couple of years, and it continues to go down. Now we have made it to Tier 1. These are the teams that don't have too many problems. Things are good for them. They are strutting their stuff. They are living the high life, having a good time most all of the time. What age could that possibly be? Why, none other than 25 years old on a Friday payday in the summertime, baby. That is the best time one can have. You're graduated from college, you got your own place, you're a little well established into your first career, making not huge money. Certainly you're making more when you're 35 and by the time you become retired, but you're making pretty decent money and you do not have too many cares in the world. You can go out, stay out all night, wake up the next day, eat crappy food, feel wonderful, go out and play pickup basketball, football, softball, all the above. No aching joints, no aching knees. Oh, it's glorious to be 25 again. Jimmy, your thoughts on 25 as the tip-top age?
I love the tip-top age of being 25. You've got your whole life in front of you. Now, it's kind of ironic because some of these teams are either in the prime or right at the edge of their prime. So, I like this as the top tier.
Chris, I know, again, it was a long time ago when you were 25, but were things when 25-year-olds were 25 when you were 25 still as good as I'm describing?
Yeah, there was a lot of Craig Roberts sighting when I was 25.
I like that for an answer. That's great. All right, let me give you the teams we have up in Tier 1. We, of course, have your defending Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams. We have the Tom Brady-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs, L.A. Chargers, and the Green Bay Packers all up in Tier 1. I'm going to start for Tier 1, actually, because I haven't started any one of these, and I have some opinions every once in a while. I absolutely love that the Chiefs are back up in Tier 1. I think as much as Patrick Mahomes can be slept on, he sort of is being slept on. We're hearing so much about Herbert. We're hearing a little bit about Lamar Jackson's redemption season. We're hearing so much about Burrow. Patrick Mahomes, I believe, is still going to show everyone that he is the man. He is the standard. Kansas City still has a ton of weapons. They still have Andy Reid dialing it up. Oh, and by the way, they have one of the better offensive lines in football now. So you give me Patrick Mahomes, a guy who can create time without a good offensive line, an offensive line that might be able to give him 5 seconds, and now he has 8. Absolutely look out for the Kansas City Chiefs. I know the West is going to be a bloodbath, but I love me some Chiefs. Chris, what do you got?
Yeah, listen, a lot of people are wanting Patrick Mahomes to prove himself again this year. I mean, they think losing Tyreek Hill is going to decimate that offense. I don't see that happening. I think Mahomes is creative enough, skilled enough to get the job done still.
Jimmy, who else up there in 1? Do you think I'm giving the Chiefs too much credit? Do you think there's somebody else we should be worried about? I mean, Aaron Rodgers is the 2-time defending MVP behind the Packers, who are up there in Tier 1.
So I don't know if the Packers are going to be as good as they have been, but it's Aaron Rodgers. He wins. He does everything. They're going to beat the Bears twice. I'm not worried about the Packers. They'll be fine. I am worried about the Bucs. We're going to get to see what Tom Brady does. He's been away for 10 days. Going to see what he does against the Colts this Saturday. I think that they could have a big regression, and he might regret coming back. Although he kind of had to because the whole tampering thing. So Bucs are the team I think that might want to be maybe a little further down the list.
Was he away filming The Masked Singer, Jimmy? Do you believe that conspiracy theory?
I believe that as much as I believe Chris being less than 60 years old. Okay, I mean, no. If he did, he is going to get destroyed by everyone. I don't care what contracts he signed beforehand. No, there's no way he's doing that.
I was going to say Fox is giving him $250 million for something, right? And they have that language in there that he's an ambassador. Joe Buck did it once. I mean, I'm just saying it's plausible. How about the fight in Josh Allen's and the Bills here, Chris? We've heard about them knocking on the door for a couple of years. What do you think the Bills are here? Are they the team Jimmy was maybe alluding to that are on the back end, or do they still have a couple years maybe to actually still be on top?
No, they're legit, and they're going to be legit for a few years. Right now, I think they're my pick to win it all. I think they made a great acquisition in getting Von Miller this offseason. I think Von Miller is going to get back-to-back Super Bowl wins, and I think the Bills are the team to beat. I think Josh Allen's the MVP favorite. It's hard to find a knock on that team.
Boom, boom, boom. Chris just coming out with some bullets there, Jimmy. Anything else you want to say about any one of these top-tier teams before we start to wrap?
Mr. Herbert in Los Angeles is going to have a lot to say about Mr. Mahomes. I think that's going to be a battle to see who comes out on top.
See, I don't know, man. I think we need to slow down on the Herbert a little bit, honestly. I'm not trying to put the kid down, but I think we're putting an awful lot on his shoulders here because of what we saw out of Burrow. But we have to remember, Burrow last year was technically his second year. He had a lot of time to sit out, you know what I mean? Mahomes sat out 1 year, and he could be a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I just think we're heaping an awful lot on top of Justin Herbert here, and I believe in a little bit of organizational fatigue, and I think the Chargers are going to just always Charger, right? How many years have we been talking about the powder blue lightning bolts being that team that if they could just get it together could be a powerhouse, and the Chargers never get it together, going all the way back to the days of Natron Means, rumbling and stumbling in the backfield.
The Natron bomb. Yeah, I mean, they are. They're kind of like that Browns, that Jets, where they get a little bit of hope, and then it comes crashing down again. So you're not wrong there, but they do have that franchise quarterback that they've had some good quarterbacks, don't get me wrong, but he's special.
I was going to say, Jimmy, Stan Humphries wants some of that pie. Chris, your last thoughts on the NFL Tier 1 teams here before we close shop.
You can't count out the Rams. I mean, they are the returning Super Bowl champs. They have the same offense they had last year. Stafford is coming back, and he seems to be healthy. We can't sleep on the Rams. They've shown that they can beat anybody, and I think that offense is going to keep running over people.
All right, there you have it. Our NFL tiers / a little bit of fantasy philosophical discussion for you there. We will have the handicapper Josh Williams back with us next week. He's going to have lots of great nuggets for you. I believe we will all go down on paper at that point with our division winners and MVPs, things of that nature. So part 2 of the season preview will be coming up next week. Also coming up a little bit later next week, Jimmy, will have to be a Yeah We Know episode where we have a premium live event that we have to predict, do we not?
Clash of the Castles coming up. It's going to be a huge event. Is Drew McIntyre going to be able to take the belts from Roman Reigns? I don't know about that. We'll see. But your boy Seth Rollins gets to take care of Riddle finally, right?
Yes, I am looking forward to the original Bro and the Visionary finally clashing so we don't have to see them just fight in the backstage area or in the run-up to the ring. They've fought basically everywhere but the ring for a few weeks, so I'm ready for that. But we will have a new prediction show. We have a couple of other folks who join us on Yeah We Know from time to time these days, so we're going to have them on real quick. So we'll have 4 different people making predictions, and what we're going to do is we're going to start keeping track of these predictions, Jimmy. So after a couple of premium live events, it will become clear which one of us is the best fantasy booker.
Yeah, we're both bad.
We absolutely are. So it could be our guy, the Cleveland Crippler, Mark Allen, or Chris. It could be you. Maybe you will come out on top in the WWE Prediction Challenge and show yourself as the best booker. What do you think?
I find that highly doubtful. I have been rather surprised by some of the work that Triple H has been doing in the creative department. So it's a lot more difficult, at least for me, to predict anything because it's not Vince pulling the strings. He was, sad to say, a little bit predictable.
No, I think that's a good point. So you can get all of those good wrestling thoughts over on Yeah, We Know. This has been the Balls and Brew podcast. Do us a favor, give us a comment, give us a rating. Jimmy's throwing little questions up there every once in a while when the episodes get posted. That's a cool thing. Just play along with us a little bit. Tell your friends. That's all we ask. We're doing some work here. We're having a great time doing it, but why not do a little bit of work so that people actually can listen? So help us out there on that end. We'll keep doing our part. You do your part by giving us a comment, giving us a like, telling your friends. We greatly appreciate it. Until we get the chance to come back to you next week with the handicapper, Chris King. The final word goes to you.
Goodbye, Internet.